Okay, so now we're gonna prepare our fabric for sewing. So pretty sides facing, and then you're gonna get 1 piece of crinkle. Let me trim off. You can trim off any excess that you have of the crinkle paper. Okay, so now I'm just going to pin these, lining them up. I'm gonna clip them, sorry. You don't wanna use pins because you have this plasticky part, and that's just gonna make it a little harder. And it's okay if your crinkle paper is bigger than your fabric, because you can just trim that after you sew it. It's not the end of the world for sure. Okay, so this is what it should look like after you have pinned it all. So you have your crinkly paper here and then white on the other side. So now we're gonna move to our sewing machine and we're gonna sew all the way around, leaving a gap here so that we can flip it inside out. So I'm just gonna make sure my ends are matching. Lift up my presser foot. We're gonna do 1/4 of a seam allowance. So usually for 1/4, you just line it up with the edge of your presser foot. And I am going to start off with the back stitch. I'm a little nervous. So when you're coming to this corner, you want to make sure your needle is down, lift up your presser foot, and we're gonna just pivot, just like that. And then we're just gonna keep sewing. Again, lift up your presser foot, pivot, and then sew, keep sewing. And then we're gonna remember to leave that gap. I'm just gonna leave my gap right there and I'm gonna back stitch. And then this one is done. I'm gonna put this one to the side and I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the other one. We're gonna take what we just did and we are going to trim the excess. I'm gonna use some pinking shears. You don't have to, you can just trim it with scissors. I'm just leaving about a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm not gonna bother cutting or trimming right here where we have our opening. So now we're just gonna take the whole thing. Be gentle. You want to you don't want to pop any stitches, but you want to pop it all out. Just flip it out and stick your hand in there. So for the ends, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna actually bring it back out And I'm gonna take my scissors. You're just gonna take your scissors and cut the ends so that there's not really too much bulk in those ends. Just like that. Make sure you don't cut your stitches. And now we're gonna try flipping it out again. You can take something like chopsticks or something like that, and you can kind of poke out those corners, kind of just work them a bit. Don't use something that's going to be sharp like scissors or anything, because you don't want to poke through the fabric. And this is, I probably should have left my opening somewhere that was in the corner, like probably around here, so that this corner would kind of match my other corners, but that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to use my fingers and tuck it in. So that it all just fits in there really nicely. And I'm just gonna clip it, and then I'm just gonna clip my closing, and then we're going to top stitch along the whole thing, just very small, like 1/8 of a allowance right there. Just top stitch all the way through. And you can, if you're having trouble, you can kind of, with your ends kind of looking nice, you can kind of roll them with your fingers, and then you can just, I'm gonna pretend like I didn't just drop a buttload of these things, but you can just roll them. Okay, so now that I have both of these done, we're gonna move back. I'm gonna move back my sewing machine. So this is how it's gonna look when it's done, all sewed up. So now that we have both of these sewn, now we're gonna sew them together. So make sure you have your cover on the outside. So this is my cover out here. So I'm gonna make sure that is facing down. So I made a mistake when I designed this. So I designed it like this, but I didn't realize or think about the fact that it would be flipped. So just so you know, your third page, you're gonna want to design it on this side, not this side. But it's okay. We'll still go with it since we're already here. We're in our final stages. You can take your fabrics and you can kind of just fold them to kind of see where they're going to land. And then you can take some chalk and you can kind of just mark up there. So I think my middle is right here. So here's my middle over here. Okay. And I'm just gonna fold it over just to make sure that's where I want it. You can even just take, if you don't have chalk, you can take a pin or a clip or something and just kind of clip right there. So that's my line. And bring my sewing machine over again. I'm gonna bring my fabric under. Making sure I line up with that line. Put my needle down, making sure it goes in that spot. Okay, so now that you have your center, you're gonna bring it in. If your presser foot make sure lifts up even more than what normal does, make sure you do that. Put your needle down so you can see where it's going. You might want to clip these ends so that they're not shifting around on you. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna put my foot down and I'm gonna sew across the yellow line that I made for my center. Oh man. So it gets a little tricky. I'm gonna go over it one more time just to make sure that so now our book is done. You can take out the clips